good afternoon, and happy Tuesday to everyone. Happy Tuesday to everyone. Salute, 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 salute. It's your boy Armondo Black. I'm back with week 8 versions of Mondo's SEC top 5 team rankings for week 8. As you all know, I've been doing this for the past 3 weeks. I've been doing the rankings. Last week's ranking had Texas on top, Texas A&M number 2, Georgia number 3, Ole Miss number 4, and Bama number 5. This week is going to look totally different. Some there hasn't been any movement, but on the back end of it, there will be some movement. So some of you may disagree with my top 5, but I'm going to present my top 5 and explain to you exactly why I am putting these teams as the top 5 teams of the SEC so far. We're in week 8. We're over the halfway mark of the season. So, hey, it's getting interesting. And right now, so far, we still don't have a clear-cut team, dominant team, a team that we can just honestly say, oh, they're going to win the SEC, no doubt. We don't even have that this year. We really don't have that nationally. We don't know who exactly is the dominant team or who will win the national title. It's a wide open race this year. And this is what makes this college football season so special. So get your popcorn ready. Armondo Black. And this is the dog call. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Armondo Black, and this is the top 5 SEC team rankings for week 8. Mondo's top 5 SEC top 5 rankings for week 8. Some other dogcasters and podcasters of other teams may disagree with me, and they may have a totally different list than mine. But this one right here, I really put some thought into this, and I'm really confident that a lot of people, if you actually are honest with yourself and you think about it, you will agree with me that these are the top 5 teams in the SEC. So, without further ado, these are your top 5 rankings. And I know some of you are saying, oh man, you done lost your mind, Mondo. Mondo, you done lost your mind. How you got Vandy and LSU in your top 5 ranking? This is from my eye test, and I'm going to explain to you why these are the top 5 teams. All right. Let's start off at number 5. the Georgia Bulldogs. They are the number 5 ranked team in the SEC from my eye test and judging on. If you also want to go by the record as well, yes, the Georgia is the top 5, number 5 as far as strength. As far as like the best teams in the SEC, Vanderbilt would be my number 4 team. LSU is my number 3 team. Texas A&M is my number 2 team, and Texas is the number 1 team. Let me start off with Texas. Let's start at the top of the food chain. Right now, Texas Longhorns are the head of the table in the SEC. Without a doubt, they're undefeated, unblemished. They just played a very tough Oklahoma team, and they dominated that Oklahoma team without any issues whatsoever. No problems. They never trailed in that game. It was just they won the game in dominating fashion, and that is a rival. Remember that Oklahoma and Texas, the Red River rivalry. Remember that? That's a rivalry game, and they dominated it. They dominated. So I can honestly say they played 2 signature games this year where they look like the clear-cut best team, not only in the SEC, but in the nation. So Texas is my number 1 due to the fact that they're undefeated, ranked number 1 in both polls, the AP and the college poll, the coaches poll, I'm sorry. And every ranking that has come out, SEC ranking that has come out has Texas number 1. So they are definitely the undisputed number 1 team right now as we stand for October 14th, 2024 on this month, on today. All right. Texas A&M. Shout out to the Aggies. They were actually off last weekend, but they, who could ever forget that beat down they put on Missouri? And remember, Texas A&M is undefeated in the conference. They have not lost a game in the conference. I think the loss that they had to Notre Dame is looking more and more better. Notre Dame is boat racing teams. They had that one hiccup against Northern Illinois. Notre Dame could easily be undefeated and ranked in the top 10 if it wasn't for that one blemish, that one slip up where they got caught slipping against Northern Illinois. Other than that, Notre Dame would be undefeated. So I don't just look at who you beat, but I also look at who you lost to. So I think that was a good loss by Texas A&M, and they have a signature win. They beat a number 9, destroyed a number 9 ranked Missouri Tigers team. Okay, let's go to LSU. LSU, I told you, there they go. Here come those Tigers. Here they come. I told everyone at the night when they lost to USC, after they lost to USC, I told everybody. My co-host, you knew, she's a lifelong, born and raised, diehard LSU Tiger fan, and she was kind of down that night. And I told her, I said, look, these guys ain't going nowhere. LSU, I've seen this happen so many times where LSU will lose a game early in the season and then go on. And back then it was the West. They would win the SEC West and end up in Atlanta. I'm not saying that this could be the case this time, but they're a dangerous team. And remember what I keep saying now. Remember what I keep saying. They are going to ruin someone's season. This team is going to ruin someone's season, whether you like it or not. They are going to ruin someone's season. So this team is dangerous. They are very, very dangerous. Very dangerous. Number 4, Vanderbilt. And some of you, this is where a lot of you are going to have an issue with me. How are you going to put Vanderbilt there? Vanderbilt is, how you going to put Vanderbilt in front of Bama? How you going to put Vanderbilt in front of Tennessee? How you going to put Vanderbilt in front of Georgia? Well, number 1, they are number 4 because I think pound for pound right now, they're playing better football than Tennessee. Although Tennessee only has 1 loss, I think Vanderbilt is playing much better football than Tennessee. Vanderbilt could easily be undefeated right now. You know, if it wasn't for that overtime loss to Missouri, they could easily be undefeated. They have, in my opinion, a much better win than Tennessee. They have a much better win than Georgia, and that is a win over Bama. Bama is ranked higher than Clemson. Bama is ranked higher than anyone that Tennessee has beat, which would be Oklahoma and NC State. So Vanderbilt has a much better win. The loss to Georgia State is still, a blemish. But what's the difference between the loss to Georgia State, Vandy's loss to Georgia State, and Notre Dame's loss to Northern Illinois? What's the difference? If people are just going to pretend like Northern Illinois didn't happen, I mean, are we going to, I mean, should we, be putting so much emphasis on what happened with Georgia State? But right now, Vandy is playing better football than Tennessee, Bama, and Georgia. Tennessee struggled with a Florida team that they should have dominated in Neyland. Okay. And Bama struggled, although they beat Georgia. Number 2 ranked Georgia. But for some reason, for whatever reason, Bama has struggled not one, but twice against 2 unranked teams. They lost to Vanderbilt and they struggled against South Carolina. They actually should have lost that game to South Carolina. So if you look at the totality of things, Bama was lucky to get out of there with a win against Georgia. And I do mean lucky. They got dominated by Vandy, and South Carolina shot themselves in the foot. So Bama could easily be 3-3 right now. Easily. By that razor thin margin. Bama could easily be 3-3 right now. But they only have 1 loss. But Vandy only has 1 loss in the SEC. Bama has 1 loss in the SEC. Tennessee has 1 loss in the SEC. Georgia has 1 loss in the SEC. The reason why I'm putting Vandy in front of Georgia, because Vandy, they had no problems with Kentucky. They had no issues with Kentucky. They pretty much, from my eye test, they played a much better game against Kentucky than Georgia did. Georgia allowed Kentucky to score 12 points. Vandy allowed Kentucky to score 13. Vandy put up 20 points on Kentucky. Georgia was only able to put up 13 points against that same Kentucky defense. Georgia played Bama and lost to Bama. Vandy played Bama and beat them. Not only beat them decisively. They never trailed in that game. They led from start to finish. From the time the anthem was done playing to the time the last seconds ticked off the clock, Vandy led that game the entire 60 minutes. Dominated the Tide. So why would I put Georgia in front of Vanderbilt when Vanderbilt right now is playing much better football on both sides of the ball? Offensively, they have Cedric Alexander and Vandy's rushing attack looks a lot better than Georgia's. Vandy's passing attack is on the level of Georgia's right now. Vandy is playing, in my opinion, right now, Vandy is playing much better defense than Georgia. So Vanderbilt definitely deserves to be ranked in front of Georgia. Now, some Georgia fans are going to be upset or disagree with me, but, it is what it is. If you actually look at it, if you actually look at the totality and common opponents, Vandy has handled the common opponents much better. Vandy is 2-0 against common opponents that Georgia has faced. Well, Georgia is 1-1. They lost to Bama, and they barely beat Kentucky. And the same thing I said for Bama, I could say for Georgia. Georgia could easily be sitting here at 4-2 right now. If Mark Stoops would have had the cojones to go for it on 4th down, maybe he picks up that 4th down, the same gutsy 4th down call that he made against Ole Miss. What if he'd have did that against Georgia? Georgia would be sitting here right now 4-2 and on the brink of elimination against Texas Saturday. That close. that close. See, that's exactly what I'm talking about. There's so much parity all across the board this year in 2024, all thanks to the NIL and the transfer portal. You can't just, you know, come out the tunnel and because you're Georgia, because you're Bama, because you're Texas, because you're Ole Miss, and think you're just going to roll over other teams. Anything can happen on any given Saturday. Anything can happen. Just like what happened in Eugene Saturday night. I was so sure that Ohio State was going to win that game. There was no way that I would have picked against Ohio State in that game, but they won. They came. Oregon came out there. They had a game plan. They beat Ohio State in the air. They beat out Ohio State on the ground. They just outplayed Ohio State. They outplayed, they out hustled them, outplayed them, out tackled them, out coached them. Dan Lannon completely, without a shadow of a doubt, was the better coach on the field. He out coached Ryan Day. So that's how it works. That's just how, you know, we never know. We can only look by, we can only go by at the beginning of the season what we see on paper. We can only go by the analytics of it until the teams start kicking it off in the elite teams, the so-called elite teams. The blue bloods start facing off against one another. And then we find out what these teams are made of. And we're starting to find out now. We're going into week 8. And we pretty much know how the Big Ten is pretty much shaping out. Oregon is the big dog right now in the Big Ten. Now, this weekend, in week 8, we're going to find out who's the big dog in the SEC. Now, Bama, despite all the problems that Bama has had, they can erase all of this by doing one thing, going up to Neyland and not only beating Tennessee, but making a statement. Go up there and make a statement, beat them by a couple of touchdowns. And it's possible because that offense, you know, I think if it got into a scoring match, I don't think Tennessee would be able to match Bama point for point. Something is going on with that offense. Now, the run game, that ground game. Now, if you're a Tide fan, the one thing you need to worry about is Sampson and running the ball on that Tide defensive front. That could be a problem. That could be a problem. Can the Tide defense slow down Sampson and that ball's running game? That's what we're going to find out. And then when it comes to the Texas and Georgia game, what Georgia team are we going to see? Georgia is like Jekyll and Hyde. What are we going to see the Georgia team? Are we finally going to see the Georgia team that showed up in the second half of that Clemson game? Are we going to see the Georgia team that showed up in the second half of that Bama game? That's the Georgia we're going to have to see. And I think that version of Georgia is going to have to play the entire 60 minutes because this Texas team, if you Georgia fans, if you thought Bama was tough, if you thought Bama was a problem, this Texas team is going to be a huge problem. This team is elite. Weapons galore. Weapons everywhere on that offense. And that offensive line is as good as advertised. That offensive line boat raced and dominated that Michigan D-line. That offensive line boat raced and dominated a very damn good Oklahoma defensive front. So Georgia better bring their A game. They better bring their A game. It's pretty much a de facto elimination game because you don't want to go into a situation in Jacksonville where one loss can eliminate you, especially with Florida is improving by the week. You don't want to have to go into a situation with Tennessee in a must-win situation. You don't want to have to go to Oxford in a must-win situation because it's also going to be a must-win situation for Ole Miss because Ole Miss is down to 2 losses as well. So this game in Austin, it's imperative that Georgia wins this game in Austin. If they if they want any, I mean, if they want to be in the playoffs, it's imperative. And plus, also, like I've said before, early in the season, and like I said a couple of weeks ago, and I'll say this again. I said it before the Bama game. I said it after the Bama game. Carson Beck, when you're going to get a signature win? Because right now, so far, your career is kind of shaping up to be Aaron Murray 2.0. And the SEC just can't seem to get past them. Can't put them away. So you need a signature win. I don't want to hear a damn thing about that Orange Bowl. I don't want to hear nothing about that Florida State game because everybody knows there were backups. They did not have Jordan Travis. They did not have all of those elite five-star wide receivers that they played with during the regular season. They was playing against a bunch of backups in that Orange Bowl. Let's just keep it real. Let's just keep it 100% real, everyone. So I do not count that as a signature win. Last year's schedule was the total opposite of this year's schedule. Last year's schedule was pretty much a cakewalk until you got to Atlanta. Ole Miss was overrated. Kentucky Kentucky, in my opinion, is better this year than they were last year. Tennessee is better this year than they were last year. Okay, you didn't face LSU last year. The biggest, the toughest test that Carson Beck saw, the only elite team that Carson Beck saw last year was Alabama. He failed that test. He lost. Did not have a good game against Bama. And go to this year, lost to Bama, and now you got another chance to pick up a signature win, and this is Texas, and we're gonna find out a lot. We're gonna find out a lot. This is what he came back for. This is what he chose to come back for. He decided to come back and said he wanted first win a Heisman, which that is not out off the table. That is not off the table because so far we do not have a clear-cut winner. If there's some games that are left on his schedule that if he shows up and show out, added on to what he did in the second half against Bama, added on to what he did against Mississippi State, and added on what he did against Clemson, he could still win that Heisman and be the first round, the first quarterback picked off the board. So everything is still in front of Carson Beck. He just had to. He did a lot of talking in the offseason. Did a lot of talking during SEC Media Week. And it's time to back it up. It's time to put up a shut up. It's time to back it up. And the time is now. The time is Saturday night in Austin. You have your chance. You have your chance to do what Stetson did. When the money was on the line, bright lights was on, Stetson Bennett stepped up to the plate and he performed and he got the job done. Can you do the same thing, Carson Beck? We're waiting to see it. And on that note, I want to thank you all for coming out to this special edition of the Dog Call. This was my SEC top 5 teams for week 8, top 5 rankings. And once again, at number 5, Georgia. At number 4, Vanderbilt. At number 3, LSU. At number 2, Texas A&M. And at number 1, without a doubt, undisputed number 1 team in the SEC and in the nation, the Texas Longhorns. Whether you love it or hate it, you got to give them their due. They are a hell of a team. And, maybe this is their year. We don't know. Hey, it's between Texas and Oregon. I think Texas and Oregon right now, they're the two teams that are playing the best football in the nation this year. Everyone, thank you all. Make sure you hit that like button. Share this video and hit that subscribe button. If you ain't already subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're going to bring you content like this every day over here on the sports channel. Everyone, enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Get home safe. God bless. Peace and blessings. And like I always say, take care of yourselves and each other. And one last thing, win, lose, or draw, it's always going to be go dogs. Sick 'em. Woo, 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 woo.